Hello and welcome to Back to the Feature, the show where we talk about movies past, present, and future. Today, we're keeping it in the past, present, and the future by watching Arrival.
This is heavy duty, Doc. This is great.
Hi, I'm your host, Giovanni Carlo, here at Back to the Feature, and I'm joined by my friend, as usual, John Vandeloo. Today, we're talking about the newest movie by Dennis Villeneuve, Arrival. Arrival stars Amy Adams, Jeremy Renner, and Forest Whitaker. Amy Adams is a linguist who must figure out a way to communicate with extraterrestrials. So this is a movie that we were all really excited when we first heard about this movie. We're big fans of Dennis Villeneuve. I really love Prisoners and Sicario, so I was really excited to hear him doing a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, it's great. A precursor to the Blade Runner project that he's directing. I was really excited when the first trailer dropped for this. I'm like, what? Dennis Villeneuve is directing a sci-fi film? This is awesome. I love Sicario, Prisoners. Yeah, Enemy is another one of those fun movies to watch. I really appreciate that film as well. So yeah.
Yeah, actually I really enjoyed Enemy. I think that it shows off, at the very least, his skill as a director, not just with the camera, but I think also with his actors as well. He gets powerful performances in Prisoners. I think that's one of those great ensemble drama films where you have all these actors playing off each other really, really well. And then I think Sicario is also another beautifully shot movie, and also has a very interesting and dark story, and I think really showed not just his range, I think, as a filmmaker, and I think this movie really solidifies that, but he has such visual range.
Yeah.
I think you look at those movies, and I think this is just us kind of getting into some of the positives here, is gotta be just the camera work and just the color and the cinematography of this film is amazing and so different from the things we saw in his other films.
Anytime that you're compared to the likes of Terrence Malick or Stanley Kubrick, or in my mind even Alfred Hitchcock, with a little more so with Enemy, but these are some great directors that you're being compared to, and it shows. It shows in his technique. You can definitely see the influence that he draws from, and he's masterful at it.
Yeah, I think that shot, when we first see the alien spacecraft in this mist, that shot is iconic. I think that'll go down as
that was breathtaking. That was John on the floor. I was just like, Johan Johansson's score, too, in the film is so haunting. Mm-hmm. And it was very unique and creative, and that shot in the field, which we already saw it in the trailer, how many times, but seeing it in the actual film was something different. It was an experience.
I think that because you have that time for it to breathe, and you kind of, you can start off with more of that mist and then work your way down to it. I think elongating that shot, I think it actually makes it even better. I really, really enjoyed just the visual treat that this movie was. So I think we kind of knew that getting in with Dennis Villeneuve, that he's going to give us some amazing cinematography. There's going to be these amazing shots. And there's a lot of natural lighting in this movie as well. And I think that also really plays into its hand really well. But beyond that, John, what are some of your other positives then from this film?
I think the biggest surprise for me in this film, and it's something that I was a little nervous about, was the screenplay written by Eric Heiser. He was known for, writing movies like Final Destination 5, the 2011's The Thing prequel, Nightmare on Elm Street remake. A lot of these things made me kind of unsettled. What is going to happen in this movie? I was like, it's Dennis Villeneuve, so I'm kind of putting some leap of faith here. But the screenplay ends up being really strong, and it was very surprising.
Well, I know that it is based off of a book, The Story of Your Life. So, they definitely have the source material to pull from. I actually did not know that those are the things that he wrote before, and I'm kind of glad I didn't go into it. That's not, I think, a filmography that gives you tons of confidence. I thought the story was very creative, well thought out, well written. So I don't know how much of that is the book, how much of that is the screenplay, though. But overall, that was a very strong element to the movie.
Other positives that I had for this film, Amy Adams, she gives a really, I wouldn't say it's necessarily her best performance. A lot of people are giving her a lot of high praise. It's excellent. Mm-hmm. She's amazing in this film. But I don't think it's really anything out of the ordinary for Amy Adams.
Well, what I would say is that it is, it's very subtle and it's an understated performance. I think that's the best way to put it, is that it's not asking for big, peaks and valleys in emotion. she is very steady throughout this movie, but she does a lot of little things to convey some very big emotions and ideas. And I think that that's probably the best way to put that. It's understated.
Yeah, and I think Denis Villeneuve too. He the way he directs, he focuses a lot on faces, and he has a lot of those holding shots where someone outside the screen might be communicating to the person, and he holds the shot on that person receiving the dialogue. So I think the way he films movies brings out something in Amy Adams that people didn't notice before.
Well, I've always thought for a long time that she's probably one of the best, probably in the top 5 actresses working right now. I think that her and Jessica Chastain make really great choices and are usually consistently really, really good in their movies. They're, like I said, they're 2 of the best out there. I think that this cast overall, though, is very good. You've got Jeremy Renner, who I think is a really great supporting actor in like everything that he kind of does. He's such a great complementary piece to whatever ensemble you're putting together, and I was really glad to see him get to play something a little different. He kind of always plays sharpshooting, like, agent of some kind, like Hawkeye included. I mean, he's pretty much like the sniper character from 28 Weeks. He's Hawkeye, the Hurt Locker. He's usually always kind of playing a soldier, the Jason Bourne spin-off things.
Yeah.
He's kind of always doing the same thing. It was cool to see him just be a scientist.
Yeah, just kind
of be a guy, be a nerd. He gets to be one of us for a day. It's kind of cool. This movie also stars Forest Whitaker as Colonel Weber, who's tasked with going to Amy Adams, who is the top linguist in the United States. And they want her to decipher the language of the what they call heptapods, these aliens that have landed on Earth. And their alien language is a symbol. It's a circular symbol. It almost looks like a Rorschach ink blot test. And she's tasked with trying to translate this symbol language into English so they can try to communicate with these aliens and figure out what these aliens are here for. So we've talked about the filming so far. We've talked about the writing and the acting now. So let's try to get into some of the negatives from Arrival.
And you look at me. I've been talking about it all week, since we saw it.
We were talking about it literally minutes before in our production meeting. Like, we were literally just talking about it.
We were really breaking down some of the things that we thought were negatives, but we kind of, I think, figured it out. Yeah. We actually got more than just the 2 of us talking about it, I'm reaching when I say there's very few negatives in this film. Yeah, I've heard people say Jeremy Renner is not on the screen enough, or he doesn't have much to do. I don't necessarily agree with that. I thought he was fine. I liked it. I enjoyed his performance. I enjoyed his character.
I was happy to see him get the opportunity to play a character like this and really kind of maybe show some more of his chops. I thought he did. He held his own. I thought he did really well.
And I think they established, too, that, a lot of people there didn't really know what was going on, And that's kind of the premise, the theme of the movie with, the communication. She was the one in tune with that, and that's why the plot keeps advancing in the way that it does. There's a little couple cuts where there's not such great CGI in the film. Some people complain about that, I guess. It didn't really bother me a whole lot, but it isn't the greatest CGI effects.
Yeah, I can agree. There's some things that I didn't quite think worked for me, but like I said, we just talked about a lot of these things. We were going over what we're going to talk about today on the show, and we got to the negative section, and we brought up the negatives, and it's just started a whole conversation about the film. And I would say there's your kind of negative, is you definitely need to watch this movie twice. I think it begs a second viewing just to try to catch and really absorb all of it. And I love that, though, about a movie where it demands to be talked about. This is a movie that you'll be talking about long after it's over. So maybe that's a negative for some people who don't like to talk. So to truly be able to talk about the negatives of this film, guys, we're going to have to go into spoiler territory. You've been warned. I'm telling you right now, you get the one shot. Spoilers ahead for Arrival. So if you're not interested in hearing that, skip over this section, meet us at the end, and we'll see you guys next week.
If you haven't seen the movie, seriously, highly recommend. Do not watch this.
You've been warned now. So one of the negatives that we had is when we started talking about this movie in terms of what this movie was trying to say. And we felt at first that there's a very distinct message about communication between human beings, between people. And then we felt that at the end, when it gets into the more heady, like sci-fi concepts, where I think it kind of goes almost like full 2001. Which you should always be careful going full 2001. But when you get to that section, it feels like it's trying to say something different. And we were having an issue there where it felt like, well, this movie didn't feel like it finished what it was trying to say through like 3/4 of the movie. The last quarter of the movie, it goes somewhere else.
I kept saying it
and
felt...
then walking away with that message instead of what was there in the beginning.
Yeah, I kept saying it felt like it wanted to stick its landing. You know, it wanted to stick its landing so badly that it kind of missed its last flip. Mm-hmm. You know, that's kind of the way I thought of it as. But then when we started talking about it, it's like... It got plenty of flips in there and still stuck its landing. I think the communication elements really did work its way out because the movie's themes really go into the evolution of humankind.
So one of the things that we were talking about with it is that in the middle part of the movie, now they have all of these screens are set up and they're talking to these 12 different, or these 11 other locations. There's 12 locations that these things have landed at. And they're talking to these 11 other governments, trying to figure out, what are these things here for? Are they hostile? Are they peaceful? What are they trying to do? And everybody's getting little different bits and pieces. Everyone's using different techniques to try to communicate. And eventually some information starts to get out and they're wary about sharing it. So then all of a sudden, all these other places start cutting off communication. And no one's communicating between these 12 separate sites. So no one knows what's going on and it starts creating panic. So we felt like there's a very clear message talking about how human beings need to communicate in order to
Accomplish.
Yeah, in order to accomplish big goals, big tasks, we need to come together, communicate, and be open with each other. At the end of the movie, what ends up happening is that Amy Adams is able to fully understand the alien language. And by doing this, because why their symbols are circular, is that they think about time not as a linear thing, but as something that is happening all at once, past, present, and future. So she starts to see things this way. She starts seeing things in the future that then have influence on the present. Throughout the movie, you see these flashbacks, which you think are flashbacks, but they're actually glimpses ahead.
Memories of the future.
Memories of the future. Now, guys, I hope you're still following along. This stuff is out there. So what we were having an issue with was just the idea that we felt there's a very clear, I think some of the best sci-fi has something to say about our world and about us at present. We felt that it was trying to say something at first with that communication. And that, you know what I mean, about being open, about communicating with other people to accomplish goals. This other part, she finds out that she has this daughter. And that she has this daughter in the future, but the daughter passes away. We see this through flashback earlier in the movie, but she doesn't have a daughter. She doesn't have a daughter yet. Now that she knows the future, she still decides to have this daughter, and it's this really powerful idea. If you knew your future, would you try to change it? Could you change it? So when you walk out of the theater, you have that really, like I said, that really like out there time travel idea that you're trying to like unbox. So I felt like that theme kind of about communication sort of fell off.
Yep.
Now, we talked about it a lot more in our meeting before the show.
So at first when we were coming into this, I was, a negative for me was kind of like, well, the third act gets a little muddy. Mm-hmm. It kind of feels like the movie, it doesn't derail. I didn't think the movie ever derailed. I think it really does stick its landing. I think all the time travel steps and all the philosophical questions that it's asking is done really well. It's very tight. I thought that was excellent. But yeah, like the themes of communication, I was really stuck. I was like, what were they trying to say? And I didn't feel like there was a clear answer. And then we started getting into a really deep discussion right before we started, rolling the cameras. She is actually willing to go out of her way at all costs to communicate. And communication is not just speaking, but it's also receiving. It's also waiting to hear back from the other side. So you find out in the movie, in the reveal, that the aliens actually need humankind's help 3,000 years from now, which I think is so intriguing. I love that they keep it a mystery. They don't tell you what it is or why, but they came here to try and communicate to us that they need us 3,000 years from now. So the heptapods actually came to Earth to reveal that their language actually creates our minds to be able to see time in a non-linear fashion. And when she gets this, when she actually opens up to this idea and actually communicates with them, she is able to see the future, see the past, see the present, all at the same time, all simultaneously. And it was because she was open to the communication, which the general theme of the film really opens up. Then it is about communication. Because of the evolution of humankind going forward, we need to communicate with each other. We need to be open. We need to have conversations. We need to make that phone call to the general in China. You know what I mean? Like, and have that level conversation.
Yeah, it definitely took a lot of discussion and thought. Long after this movie was over, you definitely wanted to watch it again. But I think that theme that we just talked about is so important. And I think that it's such an awesome message to have in any movie. It's definitely more of a thinking man sci-fi movie. It's really more of a drama, I think, than really sci-fi straight up. I really enjoy that message that being open to communicating is what's going to help us advance as people. And it kind of uses this really fun, heady sci-fi idea to bring that theme to life. So we've talked about the positives, the negatives, and some spoiler talk today on Arrival. But it's time now for final summaries and grades. So John, what's your final summary and grade for Denis Villeneuve's Arrival?
Arrival is a thought-provoking film that carries an intriguing question. This is a philosophical, cerebral sci-fi flick that sticks with you long after the credits roll. I'm not surprised in the least bit that this film is getting the praise that it's getting. Denis Villeneuve is a masterful filmmaker. It's great seeing him finally jump out and do sci-fi, something that he says is an inspiration to him becoming a director. There's some really great performances in this film. Amy Adams delivers a very poetic and I thought a really powerhouse performance. Jeremy Renner is great seeing him do something different. His performance was great. I love seeing his character on the film. And Forest Whitaker, though I think they could have used him a little bit more. Maybe that's a complaint. Maybe there's a negative for the film. But he's solid. He's solid in every shot that he's in. I think the cinematography by Bradford Young is great. The score by Johan Johansson is haunting. This is a beautiful film, one that I plan on seeing again, and I plan on picking up on Blu-ray when it comes out. I give this movie an A with a possibility to go a little bit higher.
Arrival is an excellent blend of the old and the new as it comes to sci-fi films. Denis Villeneuve creates another unique-looking movie that has some iconic shots in it. It also is bolstered by some great performances, especially from Amy Adams, and is definitely, I think, a movie that has the possibility of being timeless. And I think that's very rare in movies that come out now. I feel like this movie's message, the way that it looks, and the way that it's performed, it could excel in any point in time, much like the character in the film. I also give Arrival an A. Almost an A+. I need to watch it again. And this is a movie that you're going to want to watch more than once. So that's been our show today of Back to the Feature. We talked about Denis Villeneuve's Arrival and how much we loved it. If you guys haven't seen it, go out and see it. And you can tell us in the comments what you think of Arrival. Don't forget to like and subscribe here on YouTube. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/BacktoFeature. You can also find us on Twitter at BacktoFeature. I've been your host, Giovanni Carlo.
And I'm John Vandeloo.
And we'll see you guys next time.